Okay, we're good. You can see that?
Yes.
Right. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Michelle van der Westhuizen, if you don't know me, and I've got Dr. Rachel Maurice with me here. As we mentioned, we're both coming from Kamloops, and we are both always very excited to share about the Lifewave technology. I've been involved with it probably for about, it's 9 or 10 months now, and been using it personally and recommending it. And Rachel for much longer. Well, I'll let her introduce herself too. But we're both medical doctors, and we've known each other for about 5 years. Rachel's been a great mentor to me, teaching me lots about the patches, and I've had a lot of fun sharing them. So today, really, like the main objective here is to just explain really what they're all about. I'm going quite a bit into the importance of light in the body, because I think that's it's a good place to start to understand how the patches actually work, because it's a little bit of a change in the way we think, and a little bit of a paradigm shift to think as light as a healing tool, even though it's intuitive in some ways. But yeah, ultimately, we know that light is healing. It activates lots of different pathways in the body, and what I've learned through my own personal experience and then seeing patients is that we don't need complexity to get well. Like, we don't need a bag of supplements, we don't need IVs necessarily. Those things are useful, but when we come back to life, it actually becomes a lot more simple. So yeah, just a brief medical disclaimer. We're both, as I say, medical doctors, but this is not medical advice. It's simply a tool that we love and trust, and we're sharing it as an educational in an educational manner. And then yeah, so this is if I don't know how much everyone here has learned about the patches. We've probably got a bunch of beginners, and then some people that know a little bit more, but today we're going to be digging into the Lifewave X39 patch. There are several other patches, but this is the big one. It's Lifewave's main patch, and the reason it's so incredible is it activates dormant stem cells in the body, and these are extremely crucial for growth and for regeneration and actually age reversal. And so I'm going to dig into all of those aspects here soon. But sorry, yeah, this quote I like: very simple, physician, heal thyself. And it encompasses my journey through various, healing modalities. I 10 years ago, I was a very different person. I have come a very long way in my own healing. It's been challenging, but it's one of the biggest blessings, because I've learned through my own journey how to help other people. And I always really like to try things for myself before I recommend them as best as possible. I want to make sure that there's at least potential for them to work for other people, and then obviously that they're safe. So I really do vet the things that I recommend, and I don't recommend things lightly. So just a little bit about my background. I'm South African born, trained in Cape Town, and worked as a GP for probably 5 or 6 years before I started getting ill myself. And then I got into functional medicine, which for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like root cause medicine. It looks mostly at like how the body is connected systems, and it's looking more from a biochemical lens. So it's looking at like how enzyme systems work, and how the chemistry in the body works to cause illness. And so it's a huge step up from conventional medicine, in that it actually like speaks about the why of illness and how to treat it. And it was really, a huge jump to that, and very transformational for my own personal journey, and then for my career as well. And I truly did start seeing people get better. But what I found is that there was a limit to that. So even the people that, spent the most money, worked the hardest, did everything right, followed all the protocols, they essentially, there were some lucky ones that did really great, but a lot of people got to a point where it was like this standstill and nothing was really moving the needle, and they were stuck. And I was one of those. I got like 70, maybe 80% better after a decade of chipping away at things. And but what I really felt is I was sort of struggling still through every day and had lots of energy issues and brain fog and yeah, several other issues that should have been better after all the work I'd put in. And so yeah, basically I knew a little bit about light and quantum biology, but I didn't it didn't really click for me, you know, when something's not it's presented to you at the wrong time and you're just not really as open to it. But last year I actually had reconnected with Rachel, and she's introduced me to Lifewave, and right before that I'd gotten into studying quantum biology, and so I really understood what light could do as a healing tool. And so yeah, essentially she told me about it and I was like, this clicks, this makes sense, it's like a no-brainer, let me give it a try. And just briefly before I hand over to Rachel, I saw benefit within 48 hours. Anxiety was like it almost vanished in those first 48 hours. And that was something I'd struggled with for a long time. And then my sleep quality got better. I had a toddler. He was, what, 2.5 by then, or 2, and he was waking several times in the night. And I would wake up feeling still refreshed, even though I was waking up still the same amount of times. Within a few weeks, my energy got better. My brain just felt sharper. I had food sensitivities and histamine intolerance improved within a month. I had like my skin improved within 3 to 4 months. I had scars that healed. I had like my gum recession got better. It was like things that I wasn't even expecting, but they changed over time. And then as I went on, my exercise tolerance got better, strength, stamina, I could build muscle better. And then to this day, I'm still seeing benefits. Like, it's in hindsight, a lot of the stuff that I didn't expect, but the two biggest things for me is just a huge improvement in energy, and then in brain function, which is something I see in a lot of people. So yeah, Rachel, I'll hand over to you. Then you could give a bit of your own background and your experience with patches.
All right, thanks, Michelle, and thank you everyone for joining and sharing your time with us tonight. So, as Michelle said, my name is Rachel Maurice, and I worked as an anesthesiologist in Canada in BC for close to 20 years, and 17 of those in Kamloops, where I am right now. And I left in 2021, not thinking that I was going to be gone for very long. And in the time that I had left, I started doing a lot of digging and research. I had more time on my hands because I wasn't working, but I thought I'd be going back. I started looking at things that weren't making sense to me and just uncovering a whole host of information that we're not taught in conventional medicine, and not realizing just how many gaps and things were missing. And in that, I discovered quantum biology, as Michelle also mentioned, which is a complete paradigm shift in how we understand how the body works. And in conventional medicine, we're taught about pathology. So we're taught about really disease. We learn about diseases, disease management, how to use pharmaceuticals to basically manage or just delay the progression of disease, as well as surgery, trying to just alleviate symptoms on a short-term basis and not really heal. And so the foundation really crumbled for me at the beginning, and I was a bit distraught because I'd spent my entire life, so I had reached 50, spending my career and all my time in this older model of work and understanding, but quickly became very excited because this new understanding, this new paradigm, which Michelle has talked about and we're talking about tonight, has to do with light. And really, light is it is the ultimate driver of all of our physiology, all of the downstream biochemistry, as well as just the physical expression of our body. And there are so many ways that we can, again, as stated, simply shift in our lifestyle that have a huge impact. And that's what really shifted for me. I made some small tweaks, and within weeks, that's when my fatigue completely vanished. Not getting any more sleep at night just changing some lifestyle factors. And in that learning, I ended up coming across these Lifewave patches. And because I understood about the light part of it and the science, again, it was a no-brainer for me. And the timing was just such that my mom's health was declining significantly to the point where her doctors were talking about heart surgery. And having spent my entire career in the operating room, and seeing all the complications, that's just a place that I would avoid at all costs if possible. And so, because again, through, I would say, not coincidence, it was divine intervention. The person that last shared the patches with me was a cardiac surgical nurse for 20 years, Diane Hunt. And she not only told me stories, but she was showing me evidence investigations like echocardiograms, which is an ultrasound of the heart, and electrocardiograms of people who had used the patches for 8, 10, 12 months. Again, the body takes time to heal, but they went from being in heart failure, significant heart failure, to no longer being in heart failure, which uh, was a big deal for me. I knew that Diane understood the background from where I was coming from because she spent 20 years in the cardiac surgical suite. So with that in mind, it was, there was no denying we were going to get started on the patches. I told my mom to give it time. We're so conditioned in our society to think and want things to happen quickly, like a drive-through society, basically, the easy button. And in any case, I prepared her to give it a year. And I was shocked because within 2 weeks, she went from having to stop every 2 to 3 steps to catch her breath from her heart failure to walking where we live. There are some hills that she would like to avoid, but we were going on some inclines and she was not stopping and she was talking to me at the same time, which requires extra energy. So again, I was very shocked. And then within 3 weeks, she had to have her thyroid medication lowered. Since then, she started to notice a lot of skin issues she had disappearing. She had spider veins diminishing, varicose veins diminishing, her energy, uh, was increasing, and to the point where her friends in her age group, she's 84 actually tomorrow, um, started commenting on how great she looked and how much energy she looked like she had, and she was so vibrant, to the point literally where one of her friends' husbands said, "Whatever you're doing, I want it." And excuse me, she got him started right away, and within 2 months, he was no longer needing his reading glasses. And I just want to share the story of my mom. I have lots of other stories that are just recent as well. But for myself, someone who has always spent my time and focus on prevention because of working in the hospital for 30 years, I just never wanted to have to access it because the nature of intervention is just such that you can't help but have potential for risk and complications. And I got sick in 2020 and my brain function took a nosedive and I never really recovered. And my sleep was also very poor. I couldn't sleep through the night. And when I'd get woken up at or I'd wake up at midnight or 12:30 or 1, I couldn't get back to sleep at all. And so those two things, within about 9, 10 weeks, my brain function seemed like it just switched on again. My focus, my ability to articulate myself, my word finding, just the entire clarity came back for me, and it's been getting better ever since. My sleep took a while, I have to say, and this just goes to show again, everybody's different, what's going on in your body and what happens when. But now I literally can sleep through my kids who are 18 and 20 coming home much later than when I go to sleep. I don't hear a thing. Even something just this past weekend where we were staying in an Airbnb and we had some other kids staying with us, and there was a lot of noise downstairs for about an hour, but I didn't hear it. And I went downstairs after an hour, and then the girls woke up and said that they had heard really loud noise for an hour. I didn't hear anything. But a couple of other things, I had a little osteoma, like a little bone thing outgrowth between my eyes, just suddenly pop up a couple years ago, and it was about the size of a large marble. nothing I did would reduce it. And I wasn't going to any doctor because they would just cut it out, biopsy it, or send me for radiation x-rays. So I didn't want any of that. And it's now the size of a pea. And again, things that I didn't think of, like Michelle was talking about, my gum recession stopped. I have had fungus in my toenails for over 40 years, which I just accepted and didn't think I was going to be able to do anything about after years of trying topical and oral antifungals. Uh, it is 60% cleared up now. Spider veins for me disappearing, and my energy and my exercise tolerance has significantly increased. So I'll stop there and can share more later, but we'll get on to the presentation. So I'll give it back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Rachel. So yeah, it's pretty obvious for us to see that overall health is declining in our population. It's in a time when we've got so much technology, we theoretically should be seeing these things getting better. But chronic disease is really caused by basically our environment changing. It's not our genetics that have changed. So we've got several things like more chemicals, we've got overuse of pharmaceutical drugs, we've got foods that are a bit more nutrient depleted, much more stress. But a huge factor is that there's less connection with nature and more technology. So blue light and EMF, for example, are things that are constantly stressing our system. And so it's almost like we have to do more just to stay above ground, and especially if you're a little bit more vulnerable or sensitive. And the healthcare system is limited in what it can do for these things. Obviously, in conventional medicine, chronic healthcare is not handled very well. It's great for acute, but not for chronic. And even the natural health world is becoming quite difficult to navigate. Supplements are sort of like the new medication. It's like let's find a biochemical pathway to fix and just supplement it. And it's really quite reductionist. It's not really like looking at the bigger picture and what's actually causing the issue in the first place. And yeah, I mean, none of this is to criticize either of those systems because everyone's doing the best that they can. But if we add this other paradigm of quantum biology and light, we can see that we can see why these other systems are so limited. So yeah, wouldn't life be a lot easier if we had all of these things, more energy, could think more clearly, our bodies didn't ache, etc. Essentially, just fill in your why for anything that's health related and anything that you want to implement or change to help your health. You want to establish what's your goal, what are the things that you're struggling with that are affecting your life. Why do you want to be healthy? Why are you putting in the money and the effort to do something? What's the end result? And one of our main aims is to inform people of these new technologies that aren't common knowledge, and you don't see them pop up everywhere. And unfortunately, this type of thing it becomes a bit of a word of mouth thing. It's like anything that's in a new paradigm. It's like you just got to educate, and as people learn, they spread the word, and that's sort of how it works. But yeah, basically any tool that you're choosing, at the end of the day, you can spend thousands of dollars on things that don't work. And so hopefully today we can kind of help you see that this is just one tool that both of us have seen. It's really of quite high value and very effective. It's one of the most incredible technologies I've seen in my career, that has worked so well for so many people. And obviously there's individual response, which we'll talk about later, but yeah, it's just can't say enough about how much impact it's made on the people around me. So yeah, I wanted to dig a little bit into light before we go into the patch detail, because as I mentioned, to understand light and how it fundamentally affects our health is super important in understanding these patches. So yeah, a lot of you might have heard of photobiomodulation. That's basically photo is light, bio's biology, and modulation's change. So it's changing our life with biology. And it's not a new concept. It's heliotherapy, which is sun therapy, has been used for thousands of years, and it was like common knowledge. And even in a lot of the research in the early 1900s, they spoke about how the sun was healing, and that was really accepted. And then as sort of modern medicine came along and pharmaceuticals came along, then that sort of got swept under the rug. And even in medicine today, we have some examples of photobiomodulation. So like if you have, for example, a baby that's born with jaundice when they're yellow, they put them under phototherapy or lights to try break down the bilirubin. They, even up until a few decades ago, before they had tuberculosis drugs, they had these sanatoriums where they would put the mainstay of treatment was going outside and sitting in the sun. And then we use light therapy for several different skin conditions in dermatology and in the cosmetic world. And then, a lot of you might be familiar about red light therapy, and that's becoming more and more popular. But it's used for everything from like injuries and pain. It's used in Alzheimer's treatments and concussion treatments, and it's using light to activate energy production, mitochondrial function, etc. So it's really well researched. Actually, there's more than 5,000, 6,000 studies. If you go onto PubMed, you'll see those types of things popping up. And so the concept of light as a healing tool, it's not new, but yet it's not actually fully accepted or understood in conventional medicine. And so what Lifewave patches do is they use light as a means to activate biochemistry in a similar way. So another example, is you look at even just vitamin D production. So this is a really simple example to explain how, if you look at the vitamin D production in the skin, it needs sunlight to activate production, and it needs a very specific frequency of light, which is called UVB. And so when the body interprets that, okay, this is the right frequency or wavelength of light, the UVB, now I know that I need to make vitamin D. And so if you're in like early morning lights, or if you're in the middle of winter, like in Canada, you're not going to get that UVB, and so that process isn't happening. The same thing happens with any sort of light signaling and downstream biochemical process in the body. And so what we know about the body itself, we actually emit light and we emit heat as well. And the light that we make in the body it's called biophotons, and it plays a role in how our body communicates, like how our cells communicate. And the way light works, it works very quickly. So any light signal can be interpreted within milliseconds across the body. And so the picture there you see is just one of those thermal images. It's we know we use that in like breast imaging and things like that, where the heat signal that you're seeing is actually light. It's infrared. And what Lifewave technology is doing is it's using your body's light to create healing signals. So at this point I'll hand over to Rachel again to talk a bit about the patches and how they came about.
So thanks, Michelle. Yeah, the inventor, CEO, and owner of the company, David Schmidt, is really the heart and soul behind this. And he is not only brilliant, genius, he's humble, and he's half the reason that I absolutely love this company. This slide is not even that old, but he's now has over 200 patents to his name with the company Lifewave. It's a 20-year-old company. And although it's a 20-year-old company, it is really taken off in 2019 which is when the X39, late 2019, which is when the X39 was released, that the flagship product. And so way back when he first started, he never intended to market to the public. He actually was an independent contractor, was happy to just be an inventor, and had a contract with the government to create emergency survival equipment for the Navy SEALs. So one of those things happened to be the first invention of the patches called the energy enhancer patches. And those were for the Navy SEALs to use to make sure they were alert, they could stay awake and focused for their 30-hour long missions and not have to rely on chemicals and substances that have a whole bunch of side effects that we know about and are addictive in nature. So he decided to use light. And again, that one, the first one was called the energy enhancer. And what happened with that was after a couple of years and 9/11 hit, the government dropped anyone that didn't have to do with anything creating arms. And so through his connections and networking and physicians, he ended up connecting with I believe the person's name is Richard Quick. He's a 4-time Olympian swim coach for the ladies Stanford swim team. And so he trialed them. 6 out of the 8 swimmers that first tried the patches broke their personal records on the first day. And then in 2000, I believe it was 2004, they ended up using them in the Olympics, and they had to call the anti-doping team in because they were sweeping the medals. And of course, there's nothing entering the body with these patches. They are non-transdermal. Using light, there was nothing that was shown that they could do because nothing was entering the body. So with all of this, the company has done research. So there is absolutely scientific research behind it. There are the double-blind, randomized control, placebo-controlled trials. There are over 80 clinical trials now on these patches, and they are in over 80 countries in the world. Now, I know a lot of people have shared with me, well, I've been in the holistic space for years and I never heard of these. And while that is true, they were really prevalent over in the Eastern countries, in the Eastern part of the world, because they embrace a lot of holistic practices more than the Western world. However, since 2020, there are a lot of people looking for alternative therapies now. So that is why it is now becoming more widespread over in the Western civilization. But in 2019, when the X39 was released, the company went from a $20 million company to 600 million closing in 3 years. That is a 3,000% increase. And they are expected this year to close over $1 billion. So this company, although it's 20 years old, it's really just getting started because there's a lot on the horizon as well. And so how these patches actually work, and you can see in the palm of this person's hand, they are very small, so they don't take up any space on your body really. You can see it all looks white there, but really it's a sticker you peel off the paper backing, and right in the middle, in the center, it's actually a crystal lattice network. And it contains organic materials of amino acids, sugars, salts, and stabilized oxygen. And they are sealed in this patch, so nothing enters the body. So although the crystal lattice is there, it's merely there to reflect the body's light. It acts like a mirror to reflect, but it also modulates the light that is reflected back into the body. So there are specific frequencies. That's why with the different patches that there are and the different combinations of materials the amounts of materials to create this crystal lattice, that determines which frequencies are reflected back into the body, which ultimately determines what physiologic effect is going to happen. So in this case with the X39, it increases a special copper peptide, which Michelle's going to get into, which is naturally occurring already, but declines with age. So again, these patches have no drugs in them. There is nothing entering the body. There's no chemicals. There's no stimulants. It is merely using and reflecting our own light and that is what is driving the physiology and the changes in our body. So the X39 is the flagship product. It is a patented technology. And what that means for people who get the question, well, is it placebo? While placebo is very powerful because most drugs that come to the market, they are supposedly supposed to be tested against a placebo because the placebo effect is so powerful. However, this is not because you cannot patent a placebo. And this is a patented technology. And it's actually got a 20-year patent on it. We are only 4 years in. So there is nothing else like this on the market. So if you hear about other patches, once again, there is nothing like this patch on the market. This one increases that special copper peptide that's going to be discussed, and no other patch on the market does that. And this is what increases the activity of our dormant stem cells. So the special copper peptide is the GHKCU. For those that are interested, that just stands for 3 amino acids, glycine, histidine, and lysine, which attaches a copper. And again, this is a naturally occurring peptide we have in our bodies, but it declines with age. And what it does is it resets over 4,000 genes in our genome, and one of them happens to be the stem cell activation gene.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, and so it's basically the peptide actually you can give it in different ways. Like it can be given orally or as an injectable, and they use it in integrative medicine. But what makes this different is it's like your body, because it's getting the signal to make it, it's got sort of a modulating effect. If you give something externally, you're giving it in the dose that you're giving it in. And then, there's a chance you can give too much or too little, but with your body doing the work to actually make the peptide that it knows how to make, it's kind of balanced. It's not as strong of a signal, but it makes as much as it is needed in the body. And yeah, basically, other than the stem cell activation, it's activating multiple healing genes. It's calming inflammation, activating lots of anti-inflammatory genes, and then bringing more than 4,000 genes to a more youthful state. So we'll just talk a little bit about stem cells. And yeah, a lot of people probably have heard about stem cells. There's ways to get stem cell therapies, and which are often injected. Yeah, basically what a stem cell is it's a pluripotent cell. So that means that it's kind of like a blank slate in the body. It can convert into any type of body cell that it's needed. So if you cut your skin, your body's going to send some stem cells to the area. It can make skin cells. It can make blood vessels or connective tissue cells if you've got deeper injuries. Anything really to rebuild the damaged area. Or if you've got, for example, like a concussion, your brain's injured, or you've had a stroke, you're also going to get stem cells that go to that damaged area, and they're going to make all the different types of brain cells that are needed to repair that area and restore the function that's been lost. So yeah, the key really is that we lose stem cells as we age. It's part of the aging process. We have about 1 billion at age 20. By age 30, we've lost about 60%. And as you can see on the slide there, you lose more and more just naturally as you age. And so that basically means, you're less likely to repair and regenerate as you age. That's why we get more disease as we age, and we don't bounce back quite as quickly. The repair is less efficient. And then the body is just really, it's not as resilient as it is when you're younger to outside forces. So you have to work just a little bit harder to stay healthy. And that's in large part due to fewer stem cells. So yeah, what if we could reactivate these stem cells? And that's exactly what X39 does. So I won't go into too much detail on this table, but just to kind of emphasize the differences between a traditional stem cell therapy and X39. Sometimes, people get concerned about messing with